Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Josh, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well, and you?
Good. So I'm excited to be back in the fall doing podcasts, and I'm excited to have you on. Like, you've done so many awesome projects. I want to dissect into a few of them, but thanks for being on, and I'm excited to start the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, and happy election day. I hope you got a chance to get out and vote today.
I did the early one, so I went on I think the 12th or the 13th, and this is the first time that I am as focused and as into the whole politics stuff, because I think it's all affecting us much more in today's world than it was, maybe 5-6 years ago, or maybe it's just because now I'm in real estate. So
yeah, no, I know everything seems to have a kind of a direct effect on us. So we hope the right guys get in there, and girls, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you are a property investor in Orillia, Ontario, and you currently have over 82 doors valued at 13+ million, which is awesome. Give us a little bit of background on how you got started in real estate investing.
Okay. We've added some doors since then too. I guess that information is in a little. Yeah, we're up to 90 now. So
okay, cool.
Never a dull moment. But I was a school teacher for many, many years. I taught grade 8 for 15 years, and then I finally had my fill of it. But I started real estate investing just after my first child was born, after Luke was born, about 14 years ago. And I started in Barrie with a house hack. I lived in a part of a duplex, and I rented out the other. And from Barrie, I kind of put all my interest and my money and all of that into Orillia, Ontario. And I did spend 4 years growing up in Orillia when I was a teenager. And my mother still lived in Orillia at the time. So for the past 14 years, I've kind of built it gradually, but Orillia has really blew up in appreciation. Like I was buying, 14 years ago, I was buying 4 plexes for $200,000 and a triplex for like a $195,000. And I just was slowly accumulating these buildings in Orillia, Ontario, while being a school teacher. And then, what happened to Orillia happened pretty much everywhere in Ontario. Everything blew up. And my buildings kind of doubled in value. And then I just kept taking the equity out, and I always held onto the building because I thought that was the smart long-term play. And I would use it to buy more investment properties. And then I had one of my friends move home he was working on the oil sands in Alberta. And he moved back a few years ago, and we partnered up, and that's when we really put this thing on steroids. So we incorporated, and we started really being aggressive because I had a bunch of capital. He had a bunch of money from the oil sands. He had a little portfolio. I had a kind of a small portfolio. And then we just took all of our equity and aggressively bought places in Orillia. We went to Sundridge. We bought a little retirement community with 14 units there. We went up to North Bay. We bought another 34 units there. And now we are focusing in Cobalt, New Liskeard, and Temiskaming Shores, which is about 3.5 hours north of me. And we have 12 units there. We have 2 fourplexes and 2 duplexes, and we're looking to expand there. So, Sarah, the play is to always stay ahead of these market explosions, because when we went to North Bay, it was still cheap. And then when we went to New Liskeard and Cobalt, it was still cheap again. But since COVID hit, North Bay's seen like a 45% market increase. So we're just trying to stay ahead of the trend and finding those northern communities to invest in.
There's like so much stuff to unpack, but first and foremost, I will say I 100% agree with you. I mean, when I started investing in Brantford, everyone was like focused on Hamilton, and I'm like, well, not even 20 minutes away. It's like half the price, and
Right.
the rents are quite
Exactly.
similar. So I 100% agree with you. I want to take a step back because so you were, growing as an investor a little bit more slowly, and then your partner as well. And we hear a lot about joint venture partnerships where there's like an active partner and a passive partner, but it sounds like for both of you, you're kind of building this business together, and it's like a true partnership rather than a typical joint venture. But maybe walk me through how that even came about, and how maybe somebody can look at doing something like that versus a typical active passive portion.
Yeah, do you know what? I would really recommend it if you could find the perfect partner. Now, Brent dated my sister for a decade, and we actually traveled. I've taught English in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, the Czech Republic, Australia. I taught at an ESL school teaching Japanese surfers how to speak English. So after university, I went abroad, and I was teaching English for years and years. And Brent was dating my sister, and I invited them over to the Czech Republic, and they taught with us there, and they taught with us in Taiwan. They taught with my wife and myself. We weren't married at the time. And then we moved back to Toronto, and we actually opened our own ESL school in Toronto. And it was on Queen and Parliament. And unfortunately, we got shut down because of SARS and 9/11, and all my international students bailed because of obvious reasons. But Brent and I had traveled for many, many years. We knew each other really well, and his skill set kind of complemented mine. We both know how to renovate. We both are completely hook, line, and sinker, drawn to real estate. We love real estate, and we'll talk about it for days if you let us. So, you got to get the guy who has, or the girl or whomever, who has a good fit with you and complements your skill set. We can work together. And I'll tell you one thing, Sarah, we still foolishly manage all our units. And, my wife is the tenant liaison. She takes the calls. Brent's wife does the numbers in the books, and Brent and I, swing the deals, and we do all the reno. So more and more we're getting people involved. But one of the proudest things that I can claim is we've built this thing with no JV partners. We built it all just with Brent's equity, my equity, a bit, our savings, and some really smart deals. We've done a lot of no money down deals with credit unions where, we'll ask to buy a building, and the seller of the building will lend us 20%, the 20% down payment, and the credit union will give us the 80%. So essentially we're getting a no money down deal. We just pay for the closing costs, which is, a fraction of the overall deal. So yeah, I would say if you can find a partner who's as ambitious as you and has got a good skill set and you can get along with, yeah, knock it out of the park. Go for that.
Absolutely. So you're managing a large portfolio, and I guess, quote unquote, it's still family run. And you're doing this fairly remotely as well. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some challenges where, being maybe 3 hours away or more, are you thinking of continuing that way? Are you going to hire more people? Are you going to have potentially more feet on the street, or how are you, doing all the management piece, with 90 plus doors?
Yeah. So what we're doing now is it's kind of a simple system, but it's an effective system. So in each building, so we've got 5 plexes, 6 plexes, tons of duplexes, 4 plexes. In each building, what we do is we try and find a responsible person who's on our team, and we say to them, listen, if anything goes wrong here, can we count on you to call us? If there's a leaky pipe or some sort of problem with the roof. And in each building, we kind of have like an anchor person who lets us know when something is going wrong. And Brent and I actually have to do water tests on a couple of our properties. We bought an old public school outside of town. It's the old Utah public school out of Aurelia here. And they converted it into a big 7-plex. So we do a water test there. In our retirement community in Sundridge, we do a water test. And then we drive the water samples up to North Bay every couple weeks or every week. So we're always checking in on it at least once a week. And most of the stuff that you have to do as a landlord isn't immediate. Like, you don't have to drop everything and go there in the moment, but you got to be there, fairly regularly. And if the people in the building that have agreed to help us can't manage a problem, we're there, at least once a week to solve the problems, let the tenants have what they need from us and continue to have that positive relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great tip to find, somebody responsible in each building that you can count on, at least just to relay the information over. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because you did mention using credit unions, using VTBs for the down payment, so you're not putting your own money down. I'd be curious to hear more about that, and just, how you've been able to get the VTBs, and then also, what is it exactly that the credit unions have been able to do for you?
Yeah. So first of all, not anybody can do this. You do need some collateral. So I mean, even if you have a house with a lot of equity in it, you could probably do it. But what we do is, when somebody is selling a property that we're interested in, we'll call them up, and then we'll tell our credit union, yeah, we're interested in buying this, and they're going to lend us the 20% down payment. Now, the credit union, one of them, we deal with a couple different ones. And what we did for our first 4 no money down deals was they said, okay, well, you guys have, a few million in equity in these buildings already. So if anything goes wrong, or you default on these vendor take back mortgages, these first mortgages or second mortgages, we'll just come after some of the buildings that you have in Aurelio. And this was kind of the North Bay strategy and the Cobalt strategy. So we did about 4 of them like that. And the last 3, I think, they've actually wanted to put a second mortgage or kind of a lien on a particular property. So for the first 4, they're like, oh, you're all good to go. And then once we did it again and again and again, they said, okay, if you do on this new building, let's say we bought a 6-plex for $800,000 in North Bay. They said, okay, well, if you don't pay the VTB or the mortgage to us, we are going to actually come after this particular building. So we had to put a lien on a particular building. So it was kind of loosey-goosey at the start, but if you play it long enough, they say, okay, now we're going to look at particulars, because, you're getting to the point where you're a little more risky. But we keep doing it because the market keeps appreciating and the equity keeps building, and we keep doing it again and again and again. And we've been told this is the last one about 4 times. And then we say, well, look at the market, it's appreciated. So the market's been so good to us, and we've been able to kind of just take the ball and run with it.
So these credit unions, essentially, you are building the relationships directly with them rather than going to a mortgage broker. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll tell you how I did it, Sarah. Actually, I heard, I pay attention to all these podcasts and different real estate investors, and I heard, certain credit unions would do a deal like this. And I heard it, I think Mel and Dave up in North Bay, they're kind of a big name on North Bay. And they didn't give any specifics. So what I did was I sent out an email to every credit union in Ontario, every single one. And there was 80 of them or something. And every single one of them said no, except for one. And they said, we'll take a look at your portfolio, and we'll look at it as a global portfolio. And because I sent out that many emails, you only have to be right once. You can be wrong a lot of times. That one credit union started, and then another credit union kind of saw what we were doing with them, and they thought, well, these guys are a pretty safe bet, so we'll move in and do some business with them too. So yeah, we have 2 different credit unions we do it with, and they do like all of the equity. And I'll tell you another thing, Sarah, because Brent and I do not have a lot of joint venture partners, it's just Brent and myself and Brent's wife and my wife, the credit unions love it because we haven't muddied the waters with all kinds of different lenders and different situations where so-and-so owns 30% of this building and we only own 25. Like, we own these buildings, just he and I. So the credit unions feel good about that too, that we haven't muddied the waters with all kinds of JV partners.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ones that said yes, like, is it because the other ones said no based on having a joint venture in second position, or like what were they saying no about? Because essentially you're buying these with none of your own money,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
So
is that the
basically,
no, or was it something else?
well, they call it skin in the game, right? A lot of banks and even credit unions, they want you to have some skin in the game. So before we started getting these no money down deals, Meridian, I'll throw out a name for you. Meridian used to let us do a 10% VTB. So, of the 20%. I think we had to put in 15% of our own money, and we could collect a VTB of 10%. So Meridian, that's the way they like to do it. We did find another credit union that said, hey, you guys, because you have so much equity, we are willing to, basically give you the 80% when you are lent the 20, and we'll come after these buildings if need be. But they felt good about us because of the size of our portfolio.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And I mean, it's just, something else in our toolbox to potentially go after. Who was it in the credit unions that usually had the ability to make that decision and that you would have had the conversation with? Like, what kind of roles do they have?
The people that played ball with us?
No, like, I don't need to know who. Well, I mean, you can share whatever you want, but just like the people themselves, like what their titles were, the roles were, like, in terms of being able to give you the.
They're oftentimes just called a relationship manager, and they keep it loosey goosey. So the relationship manager basically is your kind of liaison with that company, and they oftentimes they call it kicking upstairs. They'll say, well, we'll take all your information, we'll kick it upstairs to the underwriters. And I think every credit union, first of all, they have a little bit more of a they have more leeway. Like those the big 5 national banks, I got my first 5 income properties with them, and that was great because the interest rates were really great. But after 5, they kind of say, hey, that's about all the exposure we want to risk. And I think Scotia is now going to 10. So that's a good thing, but we're beyond that now, of course. So credit unions don't have to abide by the same kind of strict guidelines. So I would recommend if you're trying to kind of get your portfolio to a larger place, go to the credit unions. Those are the guys that are going to work with you and look at your portfolio as a whole, as they call it, a global portfolio, and kind of, just look where the equity is and make a decision based on that.
All right, awesome. And I want to bring in just a quick discussion about the joint ventures and, how many do you approach to how many do you actually end up getting a yes from, and maybe just walk us through maybe some of the pros and cons to approaching somebody and then agreeing to do it.
Oh, like a vendor take back. Yeah. So
VTB, yeah.
I'll tell you a few. Okay. So in the past, like up in, for example, Cobalt, a lot of income properties were kind of, and not a ton by standards of Southern Ontario, but a lot of them were sitting around, and they're on the market for quite a while. So basically, you're looking for properties that have been on the market for a little while, which is kind of a rarity these days because everything's being snatched up. COVID's kind of changed the game. Or we actually picked up a 4-plex in North Bay, and they were in a real tough spot because they had some really problematic tenants that were, and they weren't, one apartment of the 4 wasn't paying rent. There was a lot of drugs around there, pretty rough building. So those people were trying to unload it. They had a lot of people walk through and not want to take it. Brent and I, we are not afraid of anything. So we're like, bring it on. If you're going to give me the right price and you're going to lend me the down payment, I will take your building and I will take care of your headaches, right? I taught grade 8 for 15 years. I'm a patient person and I know how to deal with difficult situations. So we take on buildings that are either distressed or they've got a bad situation or they've been sitting around on the market too long. And we also usually give them asking price. We don't haggle over price. We say, hey, if you're going to lend us a 20% down payment, I'm not going to haggle you down, 10, 15 grand. I'll give you what you want. And sometimes we give them a bit more. And then another thing, Sarah, is I kind of sell them on this. I say, listen, when you lend me the 20% down payment, I'm going to be paying you back that down payment over a 5-year term, and I'm going to give you interest on that money. So a $400,000 building, they're going to end up getting, $415,000 because I'm going to be paying them, 5% interest. We usually go with 5, but you can go higher or lower. And they actually get over asking price if they trust that you're going to pay them. But then I also show them our portfolio. We got it all up on the website, and they think, wow, these guys have been doing it for a while and they're trustworthy. So that's kind of the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask, like when we bought the resorts, it's land. They ended up doing a 5% VTB for first position, 80% loan to value. And, we wouldn't have asked, and raw land's hard to finance. So, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it definitely works. And there's pros, like you said, and there's also some downsides. So, obviously you're investing in these, I don't know if I want to call them tertiary markets, but not, the common, top 10 that we necessarily hear about. Why would somebody want to do that? And what are some potential pitfalls too of investing in these smaller markets?
Okay, well, first of all, the game's kind of changed in Ontario. Like this whole province has a housing shortage. It's more acute in certain areas than others. But we have 0% vacancy all the time. The only time we have a vacant apartment is when somebody's been kind of rough with it, and we got to take a month and bring it back up to speed and reno it. But when we put an apartment up for rent, even in Cobalt, Ontario, which has a population of like 1,000 people, we get multiple people wanting to move in there. Now I know there's been a lot of talk about, when you're investing money, you should look into kind of the market factors. Is there a big employer? Is the town growing or shrinking? And what does the future look like? And Sudbury is very strong in that respect. Nobody is really talking about North Bay because it's been stagnant for years. We put a whole bunch of money into it, and as soon as COVID hit, a whole bunch of people from Toronto just started going up to North Bay to live. The U-Haul trucking company put out some statistics saying there are more U-Haul trucks going one way from Toronto to North Bay than any other location in the entire province. So we kind of threw the dice and kind of, hit the jackpot with that. But I would not be afraid to, at this point, Sarah, I would not be afraid to invest money in any market. Like maybe if there's a town with a mine closing immediately, that's a problem. But we're seeing such growth up north. We're seeing mines reopen. Cobalt is going to start taking cobalt from the Congo and making electric car batteries with it. So Cobalt's about to kind of have a big influx of workers because it's going to be the only place in North America they're doing this. And there are mines opening up all over the place because minerals and metals are becoming more and more valuable. So I think your viewers should really look to the north. Like that could be a huge boom for them if they look at the market. But yeah, it's a town by town or city by city basis. But I'd say 85% of those places up there, you just can't lose.
Yeah. And what does Brent look like? I mean, obviously if you've got like zero vacancy and there's very, very low vacancy, can you give us like maybe just an example of, maybe price per unit and then the rent that you would get on something like that?
Okay. Well, I can give you some pretty bizarre examples because we do a lot of off-market deals. Like I'll give you an example in Cobalt, Ontario. We bought a duplex for $70,000 in February, and it needed a whole bunch of work. But we bought it in cash because it was so cheap, and we had a guy renovate it for $10,000. We put about 20 in, so then we were up to $100,000. We rent that out. The top goes for $1,300 for a 3-bedroom. The bottom goes for $1,000, and that is a 1-bedroom. So that's a home run.
That 1% rule. This is like the 2% rule, right?
Yeah, that's the 1% rule is where we start. Now we can't always get that. Like, this year, like we just in July, we bought a fiveplex in North Bay. It was an old restaurant they converted into units. It's on Fisher Street. And I think we bought 5 units for $470,000. And yeah, I think that, well, I do have the cash flow numbers. Yeah, that guy cash flows like $1,800. Another thing is, like, a lot of people talk about, oh, I have so many doors, you know, like I have 200 doors. But if you're only getting $100 a door, you know, you're not really maxing out on your cash flow. But, you know, like we really try and make at least $1,000 a building, if not, you know, 2,000. So, like, we have 4 plexes that were cash flowing $2,000. We just bought, 6 units, and they're all 3 bedrooms with a finished basement. And that was a no money down deal. That in North Bay this late spring, and that cash flows $2,900. So we're getting like huge returns up there. I know down south you guys get a little bit more on the appreciation end, but I think we're killing it on the actual cash flow, because we're not afraid to buy the distressed buildings, do the BRRRR method. We're doing quite a bit of that now. We have contractors working for us up in New Liskeard starting in October. They just finished another one earlier this summer. So we're kind of going that way. But yeah, I feel that we have pretty high standards in terms of like what we will look at. We want the 1% rule minimum.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, I mean, obviously it's probably on people's minds with, you know, the election and the pandemic and how we're all going to come out of this. Are you doing anything in particular so that you can also handle the downside? I mean, obviously I'm assuming that like your tenants aren't all going to lose their jobs at the same time, but are there any like tips or strategies that you're saying, if something happens, I'm not saying something's going to happen, but if something happens and we're going into like a little bit of turbulence, you know, are you taking any measures now so that you can ride the waves?
Yeah, like I think if you buy for cash flow, you can wait out any bad situation. Like, I mean, even if the market drops, I think the most you'd ever see it drop, because I'm not a naysayer, I'm an optimist. Most real estate investors are. You may be 10%, 15%, but I mean that's going to go back up over time. And if you do have good cash flow on your buildings, you just wait it out. Like I live off cash flow. Brent and his wife lives off cash flow, and we're very comfortable, more money than I've ever made teaching. So if you buy for cash flow, you're always going to win. And I'll tell your listeners one thing. You don't have to have 1 million of these units. Like if you have like 1 income property, it can change your life, or 2 income properties. So when I was younger and my kids were, you know, just little, you know, my wife stayed home. She's an author. She writes books. And, you know, we weren't making a ton of money because we were just starting out. Teacher's salary started like 44,000 or whatever. But we had an income property, and then we added another income property. And because of that, you know, we got to go to Australia for 5 weeks and buy a boat, and we have a cottage and a sauna and a sea-doo. But that's all because of the income properties. My meager teacher's salary could have never afforded me those things. And that was just with 2 or 3 income properties. So, I mean, you don't have to do a ton of these to have kind of a game-changing situation for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree 100%. At the end of the day, you know, if there is a dip, chances are not all your tenants are going to stop paying you at the same time, because rent is still going to be, you know, usually if anything, rent goes up in times of turbulence, if anything. But, you know, going back to this is why I'm a big cash flow proponent as well. If you're buying something that's super expensive, you're buying a condo and you're paying, and you know, you guys who you are at home listening to this, if you're paying $400, $500, $600 for somebody to live in your unit out of your pocket, out of your salary, you're gonna be like capped very, very quickly. Like you might do a couple of those, and then ultimately it's going to go against many of our goals of like establishing freedom. How long did it take you to retire from when you started investing?
Well, I taught abroad for many years, and then I had that ESL school in Toronto that went belly up. But I was a school teacher, a regular school teacher for 15 years. And it took me, 15 years. So I'm 48 now. I started collecting income properties 15 years ago. So it wasn't like an overnight thing. And a lot of people should realize that real estate's the long game. And In retrospect, I could have done it faster if I had partnered up with Brent earlier or somebody like that. But I'm kind of happy, it happened pretty organically. I would just add, at the beginning, I would add an income property every year or every 18 months. And it grew quite slowly, but it's just the cumulative effect, right? Like these, this building's equity plus this building's equity plus this building's equity. If you just keep taking that equity and putting it into other income producing assets, and mine is just real estate, I just do real estate, you can actually, the snowball effect will take you to where you want. It's not going to happen overnight. So it took me 15 years. I retired on November 27th, 2020. I kind of will always remember that day. And I love my teaching career, but I kind of painted myself into a corner because, when I retired, I think, we had 70 something doors and I would teach all day, and then I would coach basketball or volleyball or football. And then I would come home and Jessica would say, you got to go, switch out a tap across town. And then I'd have to do that. So it was toward the end, it was quite taxing because I had a more substantial portfolio. But at the beginning, you just do your work on the weekends or you do it here and there. But it was a really kind of triumphant day, just walking away from my friends and a profession I did love. But this was what I wanted to build. It was my dream, and I actually realized my dream at age 47. So I mean, it wasn't an overnight thing.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So, I mean, we could keep talking. We can take this into so many directions, but we are coming up to our time. So the next part of the podcast is the lightning round. So Josh, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Every guest gets the same questions, and you're going to give me the first answer that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Certainly I am.
All right. Lightning round question number 1. What is your favorite real estate investing book?
I'm going to have to go with, it's a book, and it's not a really well-known book, but it's called Building Wealth One House at a Time by John W. Schwab. And this was actually the book that got me into real estate investing. I was just in the library one day, was walking down the aisle, and I just started my teaching career, and it was the summer, and I just had a bit of extra time. I love libraries, and I took the book off the shelf, and it was a revelation. Like, I don't think it's the best written book ever, but it's the book that really got me my start. And the title, Building Wealth One House at a Time, it just lays it out in a very simple kind of format. If you just buy one house every year or every 2 years or every 3 years, it just shows like a 20-year spread. And it was just like a light bulb went off. I was like, holy crap, why isn't anybody else doing this? And that was the book that really jump-started my investing career. And I will always be thankful to that author and that book and that moment in the library.
Awesome. And also thank you for saying something different than Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I've read that too.
Not that it's a bad book. It's a great book, but it just gives us more options.
Yeah. Of course.
Question number 2. This does not have to be real estate specific, but do you have a favorite podcast? And if so, which one?
I'm a bit of a international travel nerd, and I follow international politics pretty closely. So there's a podcast called Pod Save the World, and it basically just gives you a synopsis about everything going on in the world. It's kind of a socioeconomic look and a look at the politics, and there's all kinds of coups going on and the whole Trump roller coaster. But it's a real global view, so I love that. I'm gonna give a shout out to your podcast. Love that. And I've done a few others too. The Breakthrough guys, Real Talk with Gary. Those guys are great. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Number 3, what is your favorite pastime? What do you do for fun when it's not around real estate?
I used to be really into boating and wakeboarding. I travel a lot too. I try and get my family out and about, out of the country too. We've lived, abroad. My wife and I have lived in many different countries, so I do love traveling. I love my boat, love my Sea-Doo and the cottage. I know that you have a cottage too, because I've seen you film from there. So yeah, that's a great thing. But just more recently, just to be a little cliched, golf. And the other day I was on the golf course, closing a real estate deal, and I thought, oh my God, if my 20-year-old self could see me. Because awesome. Am I that guy? Am I an old guy on the golf course doing real estate? But I do love golf. And you can pick it up at any point in your life. So that's my new passion. And I was just in a tournament last weekend with like 20 of my university and high school friends, and I loved it. So golf too.
Perfect. Sounds good. Number 4, if you lost all your money and your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
How would I start again? I would say go north, young man. Like down here, you need so much money for a down payment. Like, the average price of a house in this town has jumped from like, $250,000 to like $600,000. So I would go up north, and I would try and scrape together, $20,000, and I would buy a single family home, and I would do all the work myself. And I'm talking north, like Sault Ste. Marie could do it. Like I said, Cobalt, there's New Liskeard, Timmins. So I would take my money north where it's cheaper. And that's what I did out of high school, or at a university rather. There weren't really any jobs around, so I answered an ad in the paper before the internet, and I started teaching English in Korea, and that led me to, Japan, Taiwan. I lived in Europe for a year. So go where the work is, or in this case, go to where the deals are. So go north with a little bit of money, and you can snowball that.
I feel like you half answered my next question, which was, or is, if somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, how would you recommend that they spend it? Yeah,
exactly the same. Take it north. And bang for your buck. You could probably get 2 income properties for that. So, you might have to get out of your comfort zone and get comfortable driving around. But MLS, isn't that a magical thing? You can look at all those properties up north. All you have to do is look at those northern markets, find a deal, and $50,000 is nothing down here in southern Ontario or central Ontario, but it is still a substantial amount of money up north. So take that money, look to the north, put your name in with a lot of different realtors, even mortgage brokers, just cast a wide net. And somebody will bring you something, and you can do it that way.
All right, awesome. Thanks for playing the lightning round, Josh. That was our 5 questions. So where can my listeners reach out and find out more about you?
My Instagram is investnorth.ca. I also have a website, investnorth.ca. And I actually have, we do shoot some YouTube channels from time to time, just trying to explain what we're doing and if we could help somebody else. I coach, but I coach for free. So it's just kind of a fun channel to have a look at. We kind of, we have weird situations with tenants being nasty and just funny anecdotes, but it's called Adventures in Landlording, and that's on YouTube. And there's some funny videos. Check that out.
Absolutely. And subscribe to your channel.
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. Have at it.
Cool. Well, thank you. That was awesome, Josh. Thanks for the insights. And guys, just go check out the YouTube, go check out the websites, and reach out to Josh if there are any questions about investing up north or anything that you heard from the podcast. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Dan, thank you so much, Sarah. And I hope to meet you in person one day.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?